Perfect. We are live. And then right after this, I'll make sure I put in your guys' info, all of your socials, so people can go and buy your books and support you guys. We'll give it a couple minutes. Books and support you guys. I was like, I can hear myself. That is creepy.
That is creepy, isn't it? There's always a delay too.
There's always that like 30 seconds. And same with comments too. When comments come in, I feel bad because I may miss some, or some of them may go with a conversation that we've already moved on from. So
I've often wondered that, watching these live streams, seeing questions pop up, and how you, as the host or moderator, keeps track of it, because those comments can come kind of fast and heavy.
Yeah, it's not always easy. I'm sure Nikki, because you do this so often, and sometimes your chat room is really busy.
Yeah.
Well, and I use my phone. How dumb is that, hey? But that's what I have. So you got like this little tiny little screen.
Really?
So I'm like I'm trying to maneuver things with my finger without it being right in the camera.
Yeah. Wow. Well,
but that's what makes it fun and exciting, right?
You should actually do that right into the camera, just to make people question why. Like, what's she doing?
Excuse me, guys. Excuse me. I just got to look through the comments here. Oh, Jason. Okay, he's here. We can start. It always matters when Jay's here. And we have Emily too here as well.
Hey, Emily.
Hi, Emily.
She's one of my soul sisters. Love that girl. Okay, so today we're doing more of an easygoing chat. We have like some topics and discussions that we would like to discuss, within the indie world, small press world versus traditional publishing. There may be some topics that I'm sure might come up that might be very controversial, because it seems to be like that whole like trigger warnings or content warnings seems to be coming up like all the time. So if it comes up, it comes up. But, sorry, they're talking amongst each other. I thought I had missed something. Hey, LJ, thanks for coming.
Hey, LJ.
Hey, LJ.
But, of course, if we're going to have a live show and we've got authors on the live show, we can't go into discussion without talking about the authors and their works and hearing a little bit more about them. So, Tim, I'm going to put you on the spot. Okay. And I'm going to get you to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your work. And I'll hold up your book here for you here.
Thanks,
or one of your pieces.
My name is Tim McGregor. I'm an author. The book that Nikki's holding up is Heart, Strange, and Dreadful, that came out in February from Off Limits Press. It's just some really great reception. That was actually my first traditionally published book, or indie published book, if you want to say. I've been self-publishing for quite a while. I've got a fairly long-running paranormal series called The Spook Show, which this August I just put out the 11th book, which I never planned for it to go that long. It just kind of kept going. And I have a trilogy and a handful of standalone novels. That's me in a nutshell. How about you, Jason?
Canadian author.
Oh yes, I'm also Canadian.
We're all Canadian here, so
we're all Canadian. That's great. The nicest show around,
Yeah.
The Canadian Club. Hey, Laurel.
Hi, Laurel. I'm Jason White. I'm probably much more known around these parts for my booktube channel, Jason's Weird Reads, but I do write as well. I haven't written as much in the last 5 or 6 years, mostly because of my job and my little guy. But I do have a couple of things out here. This is my short story collection, Isolation, as Nikki has up there, and this novel is not really available anymore, but it's going to be available again soon, and it's The Haunted Country. And I'm working on a few things now, and that's pretty. I really need to cut back on my booktubing, because it really, really, really steals all of my free time. And so if I want to write more, I really need to cut back on that.
We just need to cut back on work. Just forget work.
Yeah, that would be great, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, time can be a real problem trying to write, as well as just the job, kids, family, all that stuff. It can really chew up your time. And what you guys do with YouTubing and booktubing and stuff, it takes a lot of time. I mean, not that I do it, but I know there's probably like a ton of work going into it that nobody ever sees. So
yeah, that's true.
but
So-
doing what you do.
Behind the scenes.
It takes planning. You gotta. I like to at least write out where I'm going with my videos, and then you gotta
Oh, do
shoot
you?
it, which is actually shooting the video takes the least amount of time. So then it's the editing.
It's the
Right,
editing.
right.
Yeah. And the uploading, and then making the templates, and then the
Yep.
announcing that the video is up, keeping up with the comments, and writing in the description, and putting in all the
Right.
tags, and yeah, we could go. But it's
It's
true.
endless, yeah. But
Yeah, and
I
it's
love it. And that's one thing, like, I love the whole process, honestly. And and that's why I have so much trouble cutting back on it. It's not because I feel any serious obligation to do it, although there is that stress too. There is a strange stress, especially once you start getting subscribers. Like, oh no, if I
Right.
stop,
I'm
they're
sure.
not going to come anymore. Because that happens. You see people who go away for a year or two, and when they come back, their audience is gone because it's ever changing. So
Sure.
Mhm.
it's a hard thing to
Yeah.
keep a mixture of.
I could see how that could really the pressure that leads to, or the sense of burnout. I think there was someone just recently, like a couple months ago, who kind of said, you know what, I need a break. I think it was it Well Red Beard? There's somebody who's kind of well known, but I could understand someone taking a break, because probably the more popular your channel or whatever becomes, the more requests you get. You would probably be overwhelmed very quickly. So, you know, life is always a balance. Like, how do you balance the fun part with the obligation you might feel to authors who are constantly coming to you, or your audience, your subscribers and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very true. Emily has tried to quit it over. She even put out a video saying that she was going, and then she came back. She's like, "I lied to you guys. Sorry."
Yeah.
It is an addiction, absolutely, and breaks are needed. Now, if we were doing something for YouTube that was like out of this world, where you were, like going viral and your subscriber count was just flying, and then you were into the millions, or even the hundreds of thousands, and you were actually making like money off of this, and it was a potential job, whether it be a part-time or a full-time, that would be something a little different. But I mean,
Sure.
just like authors, I mean, you guys work so hard. You guys have your day jobs, you have your families, all your other obligations, and then you're trying to do that on the side. So I see us book people doing the same type of thing as
Right.
we're not the talent. I just guess Jason is. So he's trying to do it all. He's the author, so he's the talent, and he's trying to do book and Instagram and Twitter. But yeah, it's a lot to balance for anyone. I think nowadays everyone's so busy. Like, it's always we got to be doing this, we got to be doing that. Hello, how are
Hey, dear.
you?
How's it going? The archive. I know his channel. I can't think of his name right now. I think it's
Graham.
Colin. But anyway, hello. I watch your channel.
Yeah, absolutely. Haven't seen you forever. That's very exciting. So do we have a certain topic that you guys want to start with first? Because I know, while I was doing other shows, topics would come up, and we wanted to like flush those topics out a little bit more. I know one of them was talking about the difference between traditionally publishing as well as, like independently or small press publishing. If anyone in the chat has any discussions or topics that they want to talk about or bring up, or questions, feel free to poke them in there and I'll put them up on the screen. But do we want to start with that? The difference between traditionally publishing versus small press or independent?
Sure.
Okay. Now you guys are going to be like the pros when it comes to independently or small press publishing. Do you guys want to touch base more on like traditional publishing, or where do we want?
Let me start, Jason. You just said that book was coming out. The second book you held up, you said that was coming out again soon. Let me just ask you about that. What's the
Well, that was one reason why I wanted to come on here and talk about self-publishing, is because I made a huge mistake with this.
Oh no!
And I let somebody publish it for me, and this is a story that a lot of people, I think, a lot of young writers need to know about, because there's people out there who, intentionally or not, will take advantage of writers who don't know the business side, and they're a little bit unaware. And my message, honestly, is to be patient, because I had written this book I love this book. I think it's a good book. I mean, it's not the best book in the world, obviously, because I
But it's
wrote
yours.
it, but it's mine, right? It's
Yeah.
good. And so I was with this guy who wanted to become an agent, and so he said he was going to start his own agency, and I was like, you know what, I'll hop on board. And he tried to sell my book, and he got impatient too. He's like, you know what, how about we just put it out? I was
Oh.
like, you know what, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do that. And so he published it under his company name, which was at this done now, and that's part of the problem. Is it was called Media Bitch. And
what an interesting name too.
yeah.
It's not like it like stands out or anything.
So a couple of years later, he said that he was shutting down, and that's fine. And he's like, I'm going to give you all your rights back. No problems there. No problems whatsoever. Like, I don't think this guy was a predator any means. He was trying to do good,
Right.
but he screwed up. And he screwed up by not releasing, like, this book. You can still go to Amazon and buy this book, but it's technically, don't, because I won't see a penny of it. I'm sure I won't.
Because I know I wanted to buy it. As soon as like you and I connected, I started looking up your stuff. I put it into my wish list, and then I watched your video where you're like, "Please don't," because it's not going to benefit me at all. And I'm like, "Oh, I want to read it so bad," but you know what? I don't want to benefit somebody else and not you.
So what I'm doing is I hired somebody to do more edits on it, and his name's Dane Cobain. He has a channel here on YouTube as well. Dane Reads, and I feel bad for the guy, because he's been waiting forever for me to release this thing. But the reason why it's taking me so long is I'm trying to create a bit of a backlog here before I start releasing books. I don't want this to be my first book again, because it's the genre isn't exactly popular right now, and it's because it's a zombie book. It's a zombie apocalypse book, and so I don't want it.
My favorite.
I don't want it to be my first release, my
Right.
first release. I'm working on a book now that I would like to be my first, and so I want to finish it and get that out, and then maybe release this. But I've got the edits, and it's almost ready to go, honestly. I'm just sort of trying to pace myself. But my message here is to new writers to take your time with things, and you know, tomorrow is going to be here, and so is the next day. And I think that's really important mindset to get into. If you're thinking about the end goal too much, then you're going to make mistakes, quite possibly, especially if you don't know the path or don't know exactly what's going on. I would stick to publishers, if you're going to go that route, who you know are trusted because you're reading their books all the time. Don't go with some guy on the internet who may be a friend or not, who's like, I'm going to start a company of some sort. Go with somebody, especially if it's your first book, who has experience and who's done this, because you don't want to make a mistake that you can't turn back from, because the audiobook for this is still, and I fought like hell to get the audiobook taken down. But because now the reason why it's not being taken down is because the guy who did it got rid of his emails. He paid for an email because you get like it was like @media.com or whatever.
Right.
And so he had to pay for that. And once he stopped paying for that, it no longer exists. And you need the email in order to, or he needs the email in order for him to say, okay, we're getting rid of that, and they'll agree. And so it's just all a big mess.
Will you put on a new cover or stick with the cover you got for that?
I'm going to put on a new cover. Everything is going to be, the story is going to be the same, but it's going to look different because the edits are actually quite heavy. Dane was very thorough with his edits, to the point where sometimes you just had to go like, oh God, how am I even writing? You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
What am I doing here?
Absolutely.
With self-publishing, there is a whole cottage industry built up around self-publishing. Most of it's legit. Which is kind of cool to see. You see people build careers off of something that didn't used to exist before self-publishing became easy or doable for the average person. So there's, freelance book cover designers and editors and formatters and all that stuff. But there are, like you said, Jason, there's people who don't know what they're doing. They might have the best intentions, but they don't know what they're doing. And there are some honest scam artists out there.
Yeah, and that's like I'm lucky in the sense that I wasn't hit with a scam artist. I was just hit
Sure.
with somebody who, like, I honestly believe he wasn't trying to take advantage of me. It wasn't just me. There was a bunch of us,
Right.
and he released all them too. But he was able to get all their books off, like their books you can't find that he published. It was just mine. It's just my luck of the draw, right?
Right.
So I got like 2 versions of this book I can't get rid of, but they're buried because nobody's buying them. So you
Sure.
can't even, you have trouble finding them on Amazon, but you can find them.
Right.
And
I just
Audible,
about
too.
bought it. Until I saw your video and I was like, no, I would if I'm going to purchase it, I want it to benefit the author directly, absolutely. And I want to read it. I don't know what everyone keeps saying about these zombies being out of season, and like, no, I love zombies. They're like some of my favorite to read still. So
For me, it's all about Romero. I love those movies, and I watched them probably when I was too young, and they left a deep infested impression
Right.
on my young mind, and so I
In your
needed to write my own
soul.
story, and that's what this is. It's my own ode to Romero. I just don't want it to be my first anymore because I don't want it to sort of, I don't want to become like a zombie guy.
Right.
Yeah.
That's understandable.
yeah, that's very true. I hear that quite a bit. Is I don't want to be known for being the zombie guy or the vampire guy, which is sad because those are still, genres that I love within horror. Is all the
Sure.
monsters.
There's standards. I don't know if if people get pigeonholed as much as they used to anymore, or at least maybe with self-publishing and indie publishing. Like if you look at someone like Brian Keane, he probably was known as the zombie guy because he seemed to have really restarted the interest in it back in the, was it 2000 his book came out, The Rising?
Yeah.
Yeah.
99 or 2000, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's thought of as the zombie guy anymore.
No,
he's
not anymore.
Kind of guy that has a big personality, but he writes widely. So,
But I do have this book that I put out by myself, and
that is a beautiful cover, by the way.
oh, thank you. I got this very luckily because it was like the cover was like $15. It was off one of those sites that you get where you can just like pick something. And you're like, I want this, and it's like $15.
Oh.
And it actually fits the first story, which is the title of the collection. So it was like very, very lucky. I didn't have to get them to edit anything except for the words, of course.
Right. That's cool.
That's really cool.
Finding cover arts for when you're doing self-publishing, the cover arguably is the most important thing. And I know, you're not supposed to judge a book by cover, but we all do. And when it comes to
Of course.
the book, it's the first thing people are going to see, really. They might have heard of it, but really it's the first impression. So if the cover isn't there, like it's hard to stress how important getting a good cover is. And
especially with all the platforms now, you look at Bookstagram, it's covers. You look at YouTubers holding up the cover, and it's like, check, I want to put that on my list because you see it and it's just like in your face. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
We're definitely judging it.
I just self-published the last book of my series back in August. And I got lucky with the covers because normally trying to find one, I will drive myself up the wall, just trying to decide on one. In the past, I've gone to sites like DeviantArt or a couple of other art sites, which are all pros and amateurs, people just uploading their own artwork. And I've just kind of gone through looking for something. And in the past, I've gotten really lucky. I've managed to find something and then get in touch with the artist and ask them if I can license this image for my book, and we settle on a price. And I think the last 5 or 6 photos that I've used for covers have all been from people in Spain, Russia, Latvia. For some reason, maybe it's just my personal taste, but I seem to go for these European artists. But again, it kind of works out. And I got lucky last time. I normally end up spending days churning through images and kind of driving myself a little crazy because
it's like a rabbit hole, right?
Yeah, it's an intense rabbit hole. And if I go down it too long, I walk away with a headache going, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I'm just brain dead. But last time I went back to some of the photographers that I've used in the past, and sure enough, there was one image was like, that's perfect. So I managed to, like, it was already done. I didn't have to I didn't have to manipulate it very much. Just put some text on the page, and
Do you do the formatting?
I
yourself?
do. I kind of enjoy the like formatting the paperbacks and stuff in the ebook. It's just the sort of dork in me who likes to make sure everything looks kind of right. And yeah, it also saves me a bit of money if I can do it myself rather than
Oh,
hire somebody else.
absolutely.
Do you use Photoshop or?
I use a free Photoshop-like program called GIMP, which kind of does the same thing. And I've been using that for a while. But there are tools out there that you can inexpensively learn how to do it. It's really just a matter of sweat equity, how much time you're willing to learn. And there can be a lot to learn, especially with photography or photo manipulation and stuff.
I use Canva for my thumbnails, and you can use Canva to make book covers too. And anyone out there who might be considering formatting their own work or their own covers, I would recommend that as well, because I find it's fantastic. Like I love it.
And it's not that costly either. I mean, like, even to have like the free Canva, you have lots of options.
You have lots of options, for sure.
But I think it's like $12 or $13 a month if you want to do the pro, and then you've got your access to everything.
Yeah.
It's also really cool.
Good. It's also good for making other artwork, like if you need to make a little ad or a little poster thing to throw.
That's what I use.
Twitter.
All these live shows, templates. It's Canva. Let's go.
Yeah, me too.
Hey, Dave, thanks for coming in. Okay, so I guess that kind of leads me into a question that will kind of lead us into the different type of publishing is, do you guys, as Tim had mentioned, he kind of enjoys the formatting. Do you guys have like a favorite part of the publishing process that you enjoy the most? Or is it just kind of overall you enjoy all of it?
Most of it I really enjoy. The part that I hate the most is marketing. Running ads.
I love that. Just send it my way.
Really? Well, maybe I will, because
I love marketing.
That part I struggle with. I've learned how to run Facebook ads and Amazon ads, which can be weirdly, I don't know. It takes a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of study to learn how to get those things to work, and I still can't do it properly. But the rest of it's fine. Even the hardest part for me is the first draft, and even that is fun. But the marketing part, I want to tear my hair out. I really.
You know what? I understand both of your points on that, because marketing other people's books is easy, so easy, because you tend to read it and you love it and you're like, oh, this book is so great. But when it comes to your own work, you're at a loss, because it's really hard to market your own stuff. If you even you could post on Instagram, as I have been lately, pictures of your new puppy, and people love that. They're like, oh, that's so cute, and hearts and everything. You post a picture of your new book and crickets. Nobody they're like, he's just self-promoting again. Like
yeah, there is that weird balance of like it takes a bit of ego or bravado to like just start marketing your book. At the same time, I cringe when I think about some of the stuff I like, the self-promotion stuff. I don't. It's probably my personality. It might also be our nationality. We naturally aren't.
That's Canadians, humble, quiet. I love that. I have fellow Canadians that I could joke with about that. But I think part of the marketing process would be also getting those people under your belt that will help you do that. Those like. Yeah, because I love putting together. Now, I don't have the same reach as a lot of like larger traditional marketing companies. However, marketing companies or hiring marketing is extremely expensive. But I love putting together, like getting some friends together and getting, like 10 or 20 people to do like a cover reveal and just blast stories on Instagram the day that we want to do the cover reveal, like 9:00 from this time. Anyone can post, and all day long the author's just seeing their book pop up in the people's stories, or to do like a book tour where if the author is willing to send out copies, whether it be e-copies or physical copies, to a handful of people, and each day of a week, somebody will put up their review on their blog or their YouTube or whatever, and that's the channel or that's the blog or whatever that we feature that day. Or, release announcement. I love putting that stuff together. Or like, there's so many things you can do. And TikTok is the place to go now. I hate TikTok, but I started a TikTok. I started one to be able to
feel the
promote
exact same
authors.
way. I hate TikTok, but I'm in there. I'm doing it.
Yeah, because it promotes, and I don't even post regularly, and I've already got like 400 followers on there. Boom, right in like about a month's time or so. So TikTok is definitely the place to be. So, and it's more work, but I'm willing to like test the waters on any platform or whatever, see what really helps get the word out. And if I have somebody come to me and say, hey, would you review my book? Or I love your channel or whatever, I'll say, well, like, where did you hear about me? So that way I know what platforms are working the best to promote authors. So, I have a blast doing it, but it's not my book. So maybe Jason's right. I'm promoting other people and it's easy that way, right?
It's a different story when it's your own. When people approach me and they want to do an interview or something, it's like, yeah, no problem. Let's do this. And it's easy. I can like throw out posters like you do. But when it comes to my own stuff, I rarely ever talk about my own stuff. If you watch my channel at all, you know it. I don't bring up my books at all.
Yeah.
Very rarely do I. And I don't know why I have so much trouble talking about my own stuff. Even at work, when I'm at my job, people find out that I have a YouTube channel and that I write books, and they're like, "Why didn't you say anything?" And I'm like,
"Yeah,
I don't know. I just don't. I don't think anybody cares, honestly. But
I think there was like one video you did, and you were like, I think I'm going to attempt to try to get into like the
I've tried a couple of times, but it just never sticks for me.
So you're saying that like marketing is like your guys' least favorite because you don't like having to talk about yourselves, promote yourselves. Yeah. I'll do it. You have like a cover reveal, send it my way. I'll put something together. It may not be like the most extravagant thing in the world, but it will be awesome.
To be honest, I'm going to keep that in mind because the way you're doing it, like it's kind of for the love of it.
Hands down.
It's different than hiring a marketing person. Like everyone can kind of tell the difference between something that's being marketed and something that's kind of genuine word of mouth kind of thing. And at the end of the day, I think word of mouth can't be beat. Like you can, sure, if you got a huge budget, you can market the hell out of a book. Mm-hmm. But what really matters is word of mouth, and that's readers and reviews. And simply one person shoving a book in someone's hands saying, "You got to read this." That's how I get my book recommendations. This is how it works. So
absolutely, that's why I had to close my reviewing request because I hit like 100 books. But then I'm also part of Silver Shamrock's publishing, like on their blogger list. So as books are ready, they just sent them out. So now my reviewing list has hit about 150 books. And I'm like, oh man, like I got to read these books and get these reviews up for these authors because it means something. So that was one of the big reasons for like, I got to take a break because taking that break, you can get some more reading. And problem is now I've got like a huge stack of books here that I've read. And I've got like 20 written reviews I need to do. I need to film videos. And I just don't have the motivation now. But it will come. It will come. Sure. So that kind of leads into my next question. Would it be a goal or a dream to ever be traditionally published through a larger publishing company?
For sure.
I thought maybe I should catch up on these. Sorry, don't mean to cut you off, Tim, but I'm realizing that we've got a bunch of comments. So Laurel's saying the same thing. Marketing is the worst. Yeah. Jay was saying Laurel he loves puppies. Jay says I allow writers to use my reviews for marketing, but they tell me it makes their sales go into the negative. I don't believe you, Jay. Every author knows you. Oh no. Don't make me flatter, make me blush. Oh my goodness. I love Jay's reviews, but I think the problem is sometimes people take Jay too seriously, and I'm like, you have to have like the guy's got a good sense of humor.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jay's got a TikTok too. He forgot. This is funny that you say that. I actually just offered to somebody to run their TikTok for them if they were interested. And I was like, well, I can put like a video out a week or something for you to promote. And they're like, really? I trust you. And I kind of snickered. I'm like, do you? So I'll be running somebody's TikTok for them, which will be fun.
Very cool.
And I've got so many fun ideas, and I can bring my kids in on the TikToks, which will be
Right.
fun. So yeah, I'm excited for that. Okay, perfect. Sorry, we've caught up. All right, no questions or anything that we missed. Sorry, Tim, I cut you off. Go into it. Would you ever want to be traditionally published?
Oh, right. I would. I have to say, I do like where I am right now, having a good number of self-published titles, especially my book series, which seems to kind of just keep taking care of itself and finding new readers. And I love having books coming out with an indie, like a small indie press. It's a nice balance of both worlds. I have tried to get traditionally published. Before even getting there, you need to get an agent. And I tried with the book with Heart Strange and Dreadful, and I didn't get an agent with that. And I tried again with another book, that one, with another book called Wasp and the Ice Cream. And I didn't get an agent that time, but that one's coming out from Silver Shamrock in the spring. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Do a little happy dance.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I'm really happy with that book. And Silver Shamrock are a pretty cool publisher. But I'm at the point now, I'm like, do I really want an agent? Like, I would love to be traditionally published, but the competition seems so tough. In fact, I was just reading a post by an agent talking about how many more agents there are now than when she first started the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are fewer places to go. Like the big publishers, there's like what, 4 of them now, and they all, like Penguin Random House owns all these smaller publishing houses, and each one of those is owned by some giant conglomerate. So like a rejection from Penguin Random House means a rejection from everyone in all these subtitles or the sub labels in their publishing house. So the competition just seems so tough. I'm not sure if I'm going to try anymore. I might just give up on it and stay where I am, because I'm kind of happy with a balance of self-published and indie published. If it came along, of course, I would give it a shot. So yeah, that's my answer. Exactly. It does seem like a close shot. So
Yeah.
Yep. How about you, Jason?
I'm actually on the exact same boat. I'm happy just putting it out myself. There's reasons why, though, because honestly I feel like I'm starting out again because I stopped for a while. Things got kind of hectic around here, and I just wasn't enjoying the process of writing anymore. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I thought I was going to quit. Oh, no. And that's why I'm doing all this other stuff now, because I was on a hiatus from writing. I didn't know if I was going to go back, but last year the itch started to come back, and I started working on things again, and so here I am. And honestly, there's reasons. I think, I kind of look at myself as a newer writer again. There's reasons why I don't want to go with traditionally published company right now, or a traditional publisher. One reason is because of my experience that I was just describing in regards to this. I don't want to make another mistake, but that's actually lower on the list. It's more about waiting. I hate waiting. If I have something that I have ready to go out, and it's like I've got the cover, I've got it professionally edited, then there's no reason for you to have to wait 2 years for it to be released. And so if I ever get to the point in the future, I think where the opportunity comes, a good one, then I'll probably jump on board of that. But right now, no, definitely not.
Yeah, that's one of the huge appeals of self-publishing, is setting your own schedule.
Yeah.
Because waiting just sucks. I mean, it's like you have to wait. Just trying to find an agent takes a lot of patience and a lot of time. And then even if you do get a deal, the book's not going to come out for like 2 years or so.
Yeah.
Or the pressure too. I mean, the pressure if you know, like you got to work on a sequel to something.
Right.
You know, you get, if you're independently published, it's, you know what, I can do this. I mean, you want to be timely because you don't want to lose those dedicated fans and readers, but
Yeah, true.
it's not the same, or it's, you know, a little more relaxed and having like a certain deadline to have it done by, or else, you know, certain rules or certain, you know, agreements might be crossed if you do the opposite. But
yeah, sure. And you can also use it to your advantage. Like my book series, I wrote the first two books. I wrote the first book, and then I set it aside, and then I wrote the second book. And I sat on the first book because I wanted to put them out both within a month from each other. Because at the time, this was going back to 2016 or so, I'd heard that this was kind of a good approach, meaning instead of just putting out one and then writing book two, however long that would take, 6 to 9 months to whatever, having both books out within a month of each other kind of seemed to have caught people's attention or triggered the algorithms. I don't know. But it did seem to help. And then the next two books I kind of banged out within about a year after that, or maybe even less than that. I was really going hard on that. But having my own schedule, my own freedom to like set the pace for it. I've even heard of some authors sitting on like 3 books and then putting them all out within a month or so. Like, because there are some crazy prolific authors, people who can put out a book within 3 weeks or something, you know?
Yeah, there's some people
how
who
do
put
you
out a
do
book
that?
like one book a month, or like Lindsay Boroker, I think her name is.
She's
She's
crazy
seriously
prolific.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And good for her though. I mean, she's
for sure.
I haven't read any of her stuff, but I've listened to her podcasts. I've been following her ever since I started doing it. I'm learning a lot. And I really I really admire her mix of creativity, because she writes like fantasy and sci-fi and lots of stuff, but also her business acumen, treating this like a business, which is another part of self-publishing. You really have to think of it like a business sometimes, and how much money, you know, what do you want to invest and what do you want to get out of it? So yeah, I'm a fan of Lindsay Boroker.
I find too that, I mean, even like if you were like to go small press right now, a lot of small press companies are, you know, like a year or 2 year wait.
They're the same.
Yeah, because they're becoming so much more popular, which really makes me so excited to see these small press companies growing and becoming so popular. But I also see so many new companies pop up. Like we've got Andrew, Horror Oasis, who just opened up Dark Lit, right? He's getting going. And so it's neat to see these things, because I'm thinking, you know, small press pops up so much quicker or so much more often that you can see an opening to be able to slide in there and get your work in there.
Yeah, for sure.
There's another one, Splatter Inc., that was started by Nick, who's a YouTuber on here, Spooky Noodles. And he's got the first anthology that he's put together with authors that's coming out soon. So it's nice to see, because it's almost like doctors to patients. There's so many more patients than there are doctors in the world. But if we see more and more small press pop open, it gives so much more opportunity for authors to be able to sneak in there before they fill up, right? So, and I think that's one thing that's really different between small press indie than it is to be like traditionally published with a larger company. The other topic is, you know, having that creative process and being part of the creative process throughout. Because a lot of times when you go traditionally published, a lot of that is diminished or taken away from the author, and they don't get to take part in everything, even right down to the cover, to the font, to the formatting.
Yeah, true.
How do you guys feel about somebody taking your baby and working it around the way they want and telling you how it's going to go, and not necessarily having too much to say about it?
Go ahead, Jason.
I was just going to say, Robert R. Mccammon, who's a very well-known writer, fell into this. He stopped writing after Gone South, I believe it was. And it was because his publisher kept telling him, you know, you need to change the story here. And I think with Gone South, they wanted to add in a romantic element. He didn't want that. And so
we don't need romance in every book, I'm telling you.
But that's what sells, right? And that's their point. And they want to sell books. And he was like, "Oh, I'm not having it. There's no love story in this book." And so I don't know if that was the only reason why. I'm sure there's other reasons why, but he stopped writing for a while, and then he started, as everyone knows, he started publishing again about 10 years later with Speaks the Nightbird and all that. But he has a lot more control over his own stories now, and that's something I feel strongly about too, honestly. If I have a zombie apocalypse story where there's no room for romance, I don't want somebody suggesting that I put a romance in there. It's just, I mean, I understand why, but
'Cause
it
it
doesn't mean I
sells.
want to do it to my own work. So that's one reason. Another reason why I'm happy, and like you were talking about, with like coming down to the covers and the fonts and all that. I kind of like playing with that kind of stuff myself. So, although I would probably hire a cover artist, I would also want it. I'm going for their style these days, and so I'm willing to pay. There's actually a cover artist I want to redo this book, but she's quite expensive, but she's also really good, and so that's another thing that's holding me back. But I like the idea of having total control. It's like you're running a company, your own business, and I like that feeling more than before. I was intimidated. I wanted somebody else to do it all for me. But having just a little bit of experience in that and seeing how things can not go the way you thought they would, I've changed my mind, and I'm more comfortable now just doing it myself.
Right.
Well, and you make a good point. It's sorry, Tim.
That's right.
As I cut you off, you make a good point. There's aspects of it that are great, and if it was somebody that like you said, that wants to go in and have somebody take care of everything, the formatting, the cover, the font, the mystery machine, the marketing is a huge thing. Although I hear a lot of authors that are traditionally published now are also having to do a lot of their own marketing as well.
Yeah.
But there may be even parts where you might come across something that you write that you don't want to have to do everything for, and it would be better to go through a traditional publisher for that piece. But everything else, you could flip flop back and forth. And like you guys said, traditionally publishing, they know what sells, and they're a company, and they want to make money, rightfully so. However, it always ends up being a cookie cutter piece to everything it sits next to on the shelf, and that's why
And there's nothing wrong with that. That stuff works. It's fun to read. I read a lot of what I read is
for yourself, maybe.
is traditionally published. I read a lot of indie like if you watch my channel, I read a lot of indie published books too. But I there's at least 50-50, honestly. And I love both. But when it I can understand why somebody wouldn't want somebody else saying, this isn't going to sell. You need to do this instead.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're not pushing the boundary. You're not changing anything within the genre. I find that what tends to change, or at least evolve the genres, generally comes from the underbelly first. And then it catches on and it sort of rises up.
That's true. With Heart Strange, that was kind of an interesting process because I've been doing it myself for so long, and then having off limits do it. It was interesting having somebody else do most of the heavy lifting for me when it came to cover design and formatting the stuff. I didn't have to worry about any of that, and especially the marketing. I know that Samantha Kolyesnik put out a ton of arcs, and I'm sure like the ones that I saw were the ones that would pop up on social media, which is probably only 50% of what she put out or what she was doing. So it was, in a way, it was actually really nice to have somebody else to do the real grunt work.
With that stuff, I can see that's hard. Like,
but there were a few moments where we had some push and pull over ideas, but you kind of pick your battlegrounds and learn to compromise for the if everybody agrees like the book is the boss, whatever's best for the book, then you should be okay. But it was an interesting experience going from a tyrannical self-publisher where it's all my way, and then collaborating with somebody else who in some ways knows the business better than I do. So, and I did want to point out, like, especially over the last couple of years, indie publishers, like whether self-publishers or small indie publishers, they can be very light on their feet when it comes to change. Because for the longest time, no one was putting out novellas. probably because traditional publishers, for some reason, they don't think they're profitable. And there might be a reason for that. Like, I don't know if a certain book length comes into play in terms of when you really break down the numbers. Anyway, indie publishers have been putting out novellas, and there's been a huge appetite for it. So the ability, and some great ones. Laurel Hightower's book it's a year old, and it's already probably a classic because it's not only is it that good, but the reception for it. I see people constantly pop up going how much they love that book or discovering that book. But the ability to pivot quickly is something that's indie presses and small and self-publishers can do, whereas the traditional ones are kind of like a tank rolling forward. They can't really turn too fast. So, and also with indie publishers, they're willing to take, like you were saying, Jason, they're willing to take more of a risk and try something very strange.
Yes.
And sometimes it pays off, like we've seen with Eric LaRocca's book, which just become a fire rocket. To
everything he puts out, it just blows up, right? And you just, next thing you know, he's being managed, or he's in with Ryan Lewis, and that's his manager now, and he's getting to meet Josh Mallerman, who also blew up, and it's so neat to see in such a short amount of time, right? So I agree with Jay here. Novellas are best for horror and dark fiction, and that's what I was exactly going to say. Is I do find that there are certain genres that those novellas or anthologies or those short stories really work for. It wouldn't work for necessarily a sci-fi or a fantasy.
No, because those two genres, their natural length seems to be not just normal novel length, but very long, like 100 over very, very big books.
I think it's because those genres tend to explore worlds, and horror explores more of a moment, if that makes any sense.
Or the interior. That's good.
Jay, I'm trying to listen here, Jay, and you're making me laugh. But I mean, that's where I kind of want to like scream to publishers, like traditional publishers, because like horror is something that you just don't see. I don't know about you guys, but if I go into a Chapters, our horror is like a shelf and a half. And it's like 65-70% Stephen King, which is nothing wrong with that, but there's nothing else. There's nothing, like I go in there and it's the same books every time. I can't pick up something new, which is why Amazon gets my business, because I can order indie, small press. I can order all these different horror books and have it to my door within a couple days. And I feel bad because I want to be able to support, like the other stores or local shops aside from Amazon, but there's just, it's not there. And I just want to kind of like, I'm part of Chapter's innovation team, and I'm begging them constantly whenever they're asking, like what would they like their readers to see? I'm like, horror, more horror. And I don't know if they're listening. It just happened to be a chance. I went in there one day, and we now have 2 shelves at my local Chapters, and there was more than just Stephen King there, and I got all excited. I was like, maybe they're listening.
That's cool.
But I would like to see more of that. No, that's okay. I would definitely like to see more of that.
I was just going to say, I have seen on social media a lot more. People are posting pictures from their local, they're mostly in the States, so it's Barnes and Nobles. But they're showing the new horror section where one never used to be. So it does seem to be changing a little bit. I used to come into this problem all the time. Years ago, I used to work in film. And as a screenwriter, like sort of low budget stuff. But whenever I was talking to producers about a new project, I would always come across this problem that they would always tell me that horror was cyclical. It's either boom or bust, meaning they didn't want to take on my movie because horror is popular right now, but 2 years from now, when we actually finish this movie, it won't be popular, or the reverse, like it's not popular now. The idea that it was a cycle, where I don't think that's true at all. It's always been popular, or it's always been a steady genre. No different than like no one ever says science fiction is cyclical or boom and bust. Like it's popular and it goes away. So yeah,
I agree. There's a market. There's a target audience for anything.
Sure.
Any genre, whether it's reading, whether it's movies, film, whatever it may be. I want to say hi, Leslie. Thanks for coming in. And yes, fantasy is almost always serialized,
Mm-hmm.
which is very, and you don't very often see. I know, I know. Whenever Leslie gets her hand on a fantasy book that's like under 350 pages or something, she's just like, "This is like a unicorn
Like
out
what?
in the wild." Like, because you
Is
don't
this
see it
even
very often.
fantasy?
Yeah,
Yeah, I gotta put Jay in a timeout here because he's being a.
is he going crazy?
Yeah, everyone's like, "That's it, kick him off, get rid of him, Jay. You're gonna have to
Kick
go in a
Jay off.
timeout." Oh, anti-horror story. I'm sure. Actually, Jason is the one that really got me into horror, so he knows that story for sure. If that's the one you're talking about.
Well, I know that
I always call myself
you weren't
out.
reading
Yeah.
horror when you started your channel. You were, I think, doing a lot of YA,
Mm-hmm.
All right.
and you
Yeah.
commented on one of my videos saying that I don't like reading horror because it's
It doesn't give me the
yeah.
heebie-jeebies, or I hadn't found my spot.
Yeah, I was like, well, you just got to keep looking because there's so much to horror, so many different, subgenres and whatnot, and you'll find something that's to your liking more than likely, if so long as you don't mind all the dark stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look at me now. I mean, it's been like the last 2.5-3 years where that's all it's been is horror.
That's
Yeah.
that's really interesting that you didn't start off that way. And I think horror as a in a very blank statement, it's still kind of considered a ghetto because when you say horror, I think a lot of people immediately think slasher.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they don't see beyond that. So, but it seems to be changing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I have hopes that it will become more broadly accepted.
And it
I
seems
love
to
peop-
be.
I love people who say I don't like horror. I don't read that crap. But
And
what's
they
your
do.
favorite TV show? Oh, I love The Walking Dead. I love Supernatural, and
Yeah, or
it's
I
just
don't
like,
read horror. I don't read horror, but there's so many different subgenres of horror in like almost everything you read. There's whether it's realistic horror,
Yeah.
like there's
Yeah.
always something lingering. I always bring up Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. That is like reality, like realistic horror at its best, because there is everything you could think of, from rape to incest to racism. There's everything in that story, and it is dark, but it is not in a horror category, but it definitely is real life horror. So people that say, "Oh, I don't like horror," I'm like, do you realize that there is like a subgenre that's just like this, where you'd be reading something like this, but it would be fiction.
Sure.
But yeah, when I first started, I was getting Owl Crate, which is a YA, and I just wanted to be able to try out some type of book subscription box. And because we're in Canada, you're kind of low on options of what you can have sent here or what's affordable to ship here for like book subscription boxes. So I
shipping
found
is
Owl Crate.
criminal.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I wanted to go buy a candle the other day, and the candle was $16 Canadian, but the shipping was going to be $26 for one candle.
That's
And
so
I'm
true.
like, listen, the candle is less than the shipping. I'm out.
Mhm.
I'm out. And I want to support this candle company because we don't have like horror candle companies in Canada. Anyways.
There is one, if you don't mind me just interrupting. I did see one. She was making, they look like gravestones, like headstones and skulls, and I'm pretty sure she was in Montreal. I'll look it up and send it to you because her stuff is
if you find
beautiful.
Yeah, because I mean, I know even our shipping, even within our country, is ridiculous.
Yeah, it'd be
But
prohibitive.
it's cheaper than trying to buy something from the States now. That's
Yeah,
for
there might be
sure.
stuff on Etsy. I don't know if you've ever looked on Etsy.
I tried to look on Etsy, and I connected with a couple of people that were Canadian, and I actually went and found like their Instagrams and tried to and they're not answering me back
Oh,
at
okay.
all. And I'm like, well, listen, if I'm gonna buy from you, I want to like be able to see your product, maybe figure out who this person is, and kind of interact, because that's the person I am. Like you said, I'm not here for numbers or clout, or I just want to get to know the people, the community. Like if I'm going to buy something from this person, I'm going to be putting these in my photos and featuring them and sharing them and getting the name out and really marketing them. So I want to know that these are people that are going to appreciate that, or that they're going, that they're not going to be snobby about it. But nobody answers me back. So I'm like, if you're not going to take the time to answer me, I'm not going to buy from you.
That's a hell of a way to run a business.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. How are you holding your head above ground, especially with everything that's going? But that's where I started, was Owl Crate. I started getting Owl Crate, and I thought, you know what? Like I could do YouTube. I was on maternity leave, right? And I had started my Instagram and started doing Bookstagram, and I thought I could do videos of like doing unboxings of my books and stuff. And And at the time, I'll be honest, I didn't even really know what YA was. And when I started to realize what YA was, because when I was growing up, like we just read. There wasn't like all these like age categories and like genres, and like you walked into the store and you had like horror, sci-fi, fantasy, but it wasn't like this is ages 0 to this and this is middle grade, and like we didn't have all of that. So I didn't know what this YA was. And then when I realized what YA was, I was like, I'm too old to be reading YA. But some of the stories were really good. Some of them were really good.
You know what? I'm reading a lot of middle grade horror these days because it's just fun. It's Halloween, and
it's
like
easy.
I got these Monster Street books recently for my birthday, and I don't care.
Those are good. Those are really good.
People can judge me all they want. I'm reading them. They're legit kinds of literature in my opinion.
Fright Vision.
Oh,
Fright Vision.
I have those too.
Yay!
And they're quite good.
That's cool.
They're fun.
I've often wondered about the actual readership of YA, because it does, like you said, like when I was a kid, it didn't exist either. But the people who post about YA all seem to be adults. Yeah. So I don't know if like whatever that category is, like what's YA, like it's 12 to 20 or something, or
YA is 12. I think it's ages 12 to 18, and then after you go past 18, it's called young adult. And I'm like, whoa, like you guys are making this way too complicated now.
But I would hazard a guess that the majority of readership of YA is actually just adults. They just like that stuff, or whatever they're getting out of it. They just like it. So I don't think the YA readership is actually 12 to 18 or whatever.
No, and it's some of it is good. Like I did read the Caraval series by Stephanie Garber, or her trilogy, and it's all about like this dark, like carnival, right, where it's all magic and it's all like a manipulation. You don't know what's real, and you don't know, like people are dying, and you don't know if they're actually dying or what it is. It's all staged, and I really like that. And so I was like, okay, like maybe I do like YA. And then I was finding myself in, meandering through the YA section at Chapters Indigo. And then I started actually reviewing for HarperCollins Canada and Thomas Allen and Son. And again, YA. That is definitely what sells. Even to this day, YA is so popular, especially fantasy or contemporary. And so that's what it was. Like, they would pop up, the review requests, and I'd be like, oh, like there was No Exit. Is it by Taylor? Which is a very popular, like horror, psychological horror, I think, book that's been around. But as soon as you would request it, it'd be gone. But they would have so many more copies of the YAs. So if you requested that, you would receive it. And eventually, sadly, I just got sick of it. I thought, you know what? Like it is a little too, I want to say the right words. It's not that it was immature. It just, I found it was the same tropes, the same characters, the same storyline. It was always some type of kid falling in love with another kid and feeling like they were too nerdy. And like, it was the same characters, same idea, just a different cover. And I thought, you know what, like, I'm not really into this anymore. It's just not for me. And then that's when I really liked those interesting different reads, and I connected with Jason, and he was just sharing all these like unique stories that you don't see anywhere. And I'm like, this is what I want. This is what I.
Oh, Nikki got kicked off. This happens to her every live stream.
Well, we went an hour, so that was pretty good, I think.
Yeah. Oh, she comes back though. Yeah.
I was gonna say, did we hit that hour mark? Is that what's happening here? But yeah, that's what really pulled me into horror, dark fiction, weird, different reads. And that's when I found the indie small press world. And let me tell you, 98% of what I read is indie and small press because the stories are unique. And I like that a lot of indie publishers let the authors have a lot of creative process with the books. Sometimes right into the covers. And you guys, like, there's no boundaries, especially if you're doing it completely independent. There's no boundaries. You release what you want to release, you sell what you want to sell, and people can just absolutely devour it. And the stories are unique and different. They're original. They're these gems. They're raw. And that's where I'm going to stay. And I hope that there's always a slew of indie and small press authors for my reading purposes.
Well, the funny thing is, 12 years ago in 2000, well, at least in 2007, um, uh,
We know,
publishing your own
Jay.
work, publishing your own work back in like 10, 15 years ago was like a no-no. You didn't do that. If you did that,
Yeah.
you were a vanity writer.
Yeah.
And there's still some of that stigma
Yes.
Oh yeah, there is.
today. I saw actually on a Reddit post, somebody saying, and it was in regards to YouTubers who are writers. He was like, are there any YouTubers who are actually traditionally published writers? And you could tell they were going off on people who are self-published aren't good enough. I got mad. I didn't attack them, but I gave them a downvote, and then I left.
I'm going after them. Let this Canadian mama bear, let me at them.
Because there's a reason for that, though, because there is this weird stigma about self-published or independent published work that it's not good enough. But I read a lot of it, and I find that a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it is better, or at least on par with the stuff that's being released by the top 4 publishers in the world.
Yes.
I mean, they're not afraid to go into those deep, dark areas that sometimes the top publishers, like, it's a different world, but the writing is still good. I mean, you do come across the bad ones, of course, but there's the majority of what I've read, at least, is quite good.
Sure. And the flip side of that, I've read, I don't want to say bad books, but say boring books by traditional publishers. Like,
absolutely.
Did not finish, and was like, so.
Absolutely. It happens. I find a lot of times I DNF a traditionally published book than I do an indie book, because there's something in the indie book that has, that captured my attention. It could even just be like a part of the plot. It could be a character. Right. It could be that there's something lingering that hasn't been said yet, and I haven't got answers, and I'm waiting for those answers. And that's what makes me keep going. Where I will jump into a book that's traditionally published that's got all this hype, and I'm just kind of like, boring. Like, I'm sorry. And it's very hard for me to not find a book that I don't just absolutely love, because my reading taste is so incredibly vast. I mean, I share what I share on my channel, but I read a lot of nonfiction. I read book about elephants. I love elephants. They're like my favorite animal. So I read things that people don't know, and usually like audiobooks, because that's how I get in that reading. Because you don't see a lot of like indie and small press. You don't see a whole bunch of it on audio. However, I am seeing more and more of it on audio, which is so exciting.
I actually wanted to ask Tim about audiobooks, because audiobooks are really easy for me to consume books, because my job, it's easy to listen to audiobooks on the way there and on the way back. And sometimes even while I'm there, I'll listen, depending on what's going on and who's there.
Cooking or cleaning or...
Yeah, cooking and cleaning. Yeah. But I listened to Bad Wolf.
Oh, did you? Oh,
in preparation for this, and man, that's quite good.
Thank you so much.
Honestly, I couldn't tell the difference between, going back to this whole stigma of self-publishing. Couldn't tell the difference between your book and Harper or Penguin. Honestly, it was very well done. And
so much. That's very kind of you to say. I appreciate the read.
Yeah, no problem. But I was wondering, you don't have too many audiobooks. Is it really difficult to get that done?
There is a way to do it. It's an Amazon-owned company called ACX.
ACX,
yeah. Which the problem comes in. You can do it either 2 ways. You can simply just hire somebody. Like, you can sample tons of kind of different kind of narrators, producers. You can get very narrow with what you're looking for, like gender and accents or whatever. But you can hire them to do the book, but that is very expensive, because producing an audiobook, I've heard it takes like about 3 hours to produce 1 hour of finished audio. So you're looking at bare minimum $2,000 to $3,000 on the cheap side to actually just produce
Yeah, don't
basically.
write any Stephen King long tomes.
Yeah. The other way is you can do a royalty share with the narrator. So I forget what the split is. It's not exactly 50-50, I think. But
It's
anyway,
like 60-40 or something like
yeah,
that.
I think
Yeah.
I haven't done it in a while. So you can do it that way, but it the people you're going to get, you really have to search for somebody who's good, because you typically the people who are doing this, they start off doing the royalty share, and then once they get a reputation, they go to completely full pay. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, and I've had a couple of audiobooks where I've put out a few, but some I started the project with the royalty split, so I was waiting for the person to finish, and something happened, they just didn't finish it. So it's something I should get back to, get more books on audio. Uh, it's just a matter of time.
Mhm.
So if I had more money to spend and I could just pay somebody to do it, I'd be kind of happy to. But
Yeah.
uh,
I see your dilemma, because it is expensive, right? And if you're not going to
yeah,
make that money back, then
yeah,
what's the use?
yeah. So doing it with the royalty split is kind of like you're kind of sharing the burden
Hmm.
of that with the narrators.
But I didn't know that. I did, because I've never done it. I didn't realize that the royalty splitting thing, the narrator could say, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. I just want to be paid because they've reached a certain level. I noticed that the Bad Wolf series isn't complete on.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, is that maybe the reason why?
I just kind of stopped. I wasn't. Okay, I'm going to confess something. When I wrote that trilogy, I didn't plan out the whole trilogy. So that last book, I was never quite happy with. In fact, in hindsight, I probably should have left it at just 2 books, because I liked the first 2 books a lot. And then when it came to the third one, I was like, for some reason, I thought, okay, trilogies are just a thing. I need to find some way to wrap up this whole thing, and that's where the non-planning, it kind of bit me in the ass. So it's not a bad book, but I'm not that crazy about it. So I've just kind of let it lie there and moved on. So maybe someday I'll get back to it. I'll put out the audiobook for that one, but it's not going to be anytime soon. So
Fair enough. Very good first book, though.
oh,
I really
thanks.
enjoyed the police procedural and involving a werewolf. It was
Yeah, it's a fun
tops,
mashup.
man. I absolutely that. But I have a weakness for that kind of thing. So
Have you?
when I went to investigate you, because I knew I was going to be on the show with you, I was like, oh, he's got a werewolf book out. I'm getting that, man.
That idea came out of there's so many horror books or movies. They're always at odds to keep the police or keep the police out. You want to keep the characters kind of isolated or whatever. And I always thought, well, what happened afterwards? What if somebody actually a cop was looking at a crime scene like, this is clearly a supernatural monster. What the fuck do we do? So that's where that idea came from.
Yeah.
Well, now I've got to go read it. That's it.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
You're adding onto my list, but it's all good. It's all good. I'm gonna eventually be crushed under my books, and I'm just gonna have to read my way out.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah,
That's it. And that's okay though. That I think that's probably like the best thing that could possibly happen to a book nerd is, I mean,
It's the best way for a book nerd to die.
yeah.
Is being crushed by their TBR. Because
you guys are gonna see on headlines, girl dies from.
you'll see the
crushed.
picture, their arms and legs are sticking out. And
Display out. Yeah.
there's a pile of books on top of their middle.
Okay, somebody's got to do that as like a bookstagram photo to be like completely crushed and make it like some type of like murder scene, and they're just sitting there underneath their books.
He died, but he died happy and well read.
Oh man. And well read. Exactly. And it's true, like you guys are saying, that indie is seen. I always say that it's like the bad word. You say indie and people are like, it's gonna be junk, it's gonna be no good. But I don't know, you guys. Like, I've met some of my all-time favorite authors.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
From their work.
Some of my
and
very
you can't
favorite
tell the
writers are
difference.
indie writers.
Mm-hmm.
In a way,
Absolutely.
it's not that different from music. A lot of indie music is where the real innovation comes from, as opposed to the really pop stuff. So It's kind of the same thing.
Being crushed by the
Well read dead.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh man, that needs to be a channel name. That's it. When I rebrand,
Well
no, I'm
read
just kidding.
There you go, Nikki.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's it. I'm gonna close this channel down. I'm gonna come back, and that's gonna be the new name.
You can even document up until your TBR kills you. You like, my
Yeah.
TBR is going to be my death, and this is my story until then. You know, do constant vlogs where your TBR just sinister. It keeps growing.
Just teetering.
It's just growing every episode, and soon it's just going to topple on you and flatten you.
It's funny that you say, because the shelf that's actually behind me, I wait for one day for it to fall forward, because
It looks a little crowded behind you. Yeah.
and in this room where I am, we've got carpet in this room, which most houses don't have much carpet anymore. And so bookshelves are actually built to sit on a hard floor, and then you can actually push it back and you can bolt it to the wall. However, our base, floorboards are quite wide, and then we have carpet in this room. So this thing actually sits on a bit of an angle against the wall. Like, it doesn't sit, so you can't bolt it to the wall. So I'm constantly walking past it and kind of giving it like a little bit of a shake, kind of like, are you sturdy? Are you going to stay? So one day I am going to be on a live show or recording a video, and the whole
we're all going to watch it live. It actually happened. Holy shit.
One day and you know what? That's great. Jason, you have given me like the best idea in the world. I'm gonna have to like document my expected death of being crushed by my TBR. I'm gonna have to vlog it, make videos about it, book posts about it, and
this is how I die.
Yeah, and then
I'm a terminal reader.
Yeah, I'll get the EMTs out early and have them at the house ready to go, and we'll film a video of me being being crushed by this thing behind me. Oh, that's too funny. Well, we've hit the hour and 11 mark. Are you guys still okay to go for a little bit? We've kind of stayed on one topic, but it's a really interesting topic. And I've seen there's another Canadian author. Her name is Leah Lindemann. And she does a series where she talks about, like the different, like the pros and cons between small press and indie versus traditionally published. And that was one of the things that she had brought up, was the difference between, like if you want to have full control, then indie's the way to go. If you want to be able to put your book out and have somebody else take care of it for you and not have any of the worries, other than maybe a little bit of like the editing or some marketing here and there, the traditionally published is the way to go. But do you guys think that indie and small press is slowly taking over traditionally published? I mean, there's so many more small press companies out there. So many people are publishing books.
Yeah, I don't know if it's taking over with a specific genre like horror, maybe, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of mainstream or traditionally published horror. Now that might change. They might clue in and start putting out more. But for now, quality horror seems to be the purview of small and indie published. Yes. So, and it's kind of, I kind of like it that way. But that might change in the future because, they are businesses, and as soon as they smell a certain trend or money somewhere, they're going to come looking for it. But maybe that'll be a boon for the industry, for the genre as well. Like maybe more writers who are being put up by indies, maybe they'll be launching up into bigger and bigger things. So
yeah, absolutely. We'll put our wall up and be like, no, it can't touch us.
we'll gatekeep them.
We're off limits here. We're our own people. We love our people.
Yeah. I honestly, I don't think it's taking over. I don't think you could. Honestly, it's like David versus Goliath. It's they're too big. Until you have a lot of indie published books in main bookstores, then you're not really getting anywhere, I don't think. But Amazon, no matter how evil they are helping in a big sense. Yeah. But what it really comes down to is it seems to be growing regardless of.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There's people, because people are catching on. Like I was kind of bitching about the stigma. But there's a lot more people, I think, than there used to be, even like 5 years ago, who realize that, there's good stuff. I mean, really good stuff in the indie scene.
Mind-boggling,
Yeah.
drool over, buy multiple copies, good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Hand out to your friends. Here, read this. Yeah.
I do. We were actually talking about that in another live show, is gifting friends and family indie work or small press work. And I've had times where I've just had that itch where I've got some extra money and I need to buy some books. However, my TBR is to the point where I can't keep up with it. So I have gone and I've bought friends books and sent it to them and be like, listen, I have an itch I need to buy, but I can't buy for me. So I'm going to buy for you. And
that's a great solution.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I know this
more
firsthand,
readers.
actually, from Nichi. I know this firsthand from Nichi. Freight Vision, anyone?
Right. Well, it's fun. And then you know what? If you buy them books that you have on your TBR as well, I mean, it just means that you can do a buddy read,
Now
have
you're
a good
thinking.
time, right?
Trade the books later on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's smart.
Discuss them. I actually received 2 copies of The Nirvana Effect from Flame Tree Press. And I reached out to them and I said, like, what would you like me to do with this? And I said, like, I've got a friend that would read this with me. And then we could do a live show where we discuss it at that time. And they're like, that sounds great. And so that's what we did. And we're going to have to book a live show for it to discuss it. And it was a lot of fun. So I love buddy reads. There's nothing better than getting to share something I love with somebody else and then having them fall in love with it too and start reading more of it. Poor Linda is my victim majority of the time because her and I are such good friends. I'm always sending her books and saying, listen, this is another buddy read on the 50 that we already have together. Or like book clubs. I mean, it's so fun to be able to put these books together and saying, like, let's get like a handful of people together and read these people's work, get them out in the open into the wild and read them and enjoy them and talk about them and just gush about it. That's what I love about Indian small press world and the people that promote Indian small press. We're all like-minded and we just want to do everything we can to get the stuff out there for sure.
Yeah, that's just really true. The horror community itself, I talked about this on another podcast, but I couldn't tell if the horror community has kind of always been here or if it's just something that's kind of blossomed in the last couple of years. Because to me, it seems like it has, but maybe I just wasn't looking in the right place. But it is wild to see, whether it's on Twitter or Instagram or here on YouTube or whatever, just the how generous the community is, whether not just writers but readers. It's kind of wild, and I really like the fact that it's here, that I found my way into it. Because I've learned a lot from other writers, and I've learned a lot from readers too. There's lots to learn from just watching people talk about a book on Twitter or wherever. And I think it's amazing. Like, yeah.
It's
I was
true.
going to
I
wrap that
think
up
it's
with a really profound statement, but I couldn't.
It was there. And then it
the words were there, and I lost them. That's what happens. But it's true. I think like when it comes to like BookTube and Bookstagram, I think that like the outsiders, not the authors, but I think that's blossomed over time. Because if you go on Bookstagram, there's almost like a little, I don't want to say a clique, but like a little group of horror bookstagrammers. But if you look at the slew of things, there's like fantasy YA. Right. It's never ending. It's like a sea, an ocean full, right? But I'm always constantly trying to find new people that, support horror or dark fiction. And there's not very many. So I do think it's slowly blossoming, growing, becoming bigger and bigger.
Especially in horror booktube. When I started, I think it was 2018, 2017, there was people doing it, like Cameron Chaney, Shades of Orange, Stephanie from Books in the Freezer. She was doing her channel then, but there wasn't that many.
She's doing TikTok.
Yeah, she does a lot of TikTok. She's really good at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's grown a lot since then. But it's nowhere near where fantasy and
Right.
actually science fiction, I think, is hurting worse than the horror because there's hardly any science fiction
Yes.
on BookTube.
Really? Huh.
But there is some. But horror
Scott,
is
Book
really
Invasion.
starting to gain traction. I mean, there's a lot of people
Yes.
starting their own channels,
Mhm.
and I say bring it because the more that we share this stuff, the more chance that people are going to find it. So, and then
that's
you
very
know,
true.
like I was able to warp Nikki's mind, or at least help warp Nikki's mind.
What have you
And,
done? You've turned me crazy.
yeah, and I want to warp more minds to be quite honest. So, and
Sure.
you know what? So did they. And
Yeah.
and let's charge into this. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I know Brad from Brad Proctor. I don't know if he's here and just watching. Sometimes he just kind of sits in the background and listens.
I do that too. I understand.
He just kind of sits there, the stalker, low key
Right.
stalking the chat. He's actually admitted to me a couple of times. I keep saying, "Say it louder, say it louder." He says that I'm the reason that he got into indie horror. From
Really?
watching my channel and from doing, so we did some buddy reads early on when he started his channel, and I'm like, yay! So Jason pulled me in, and then I was able to share that with other people. So it's really exciting. And like Jay says here, that we are the coolest, nicest people. So people might be a little intimidated or scared to jump into the horror, sci-fi, or whatever world, but we are some of the nicest people. Sometimes some of the most dramatic people, though. Too.
It happens, though. Like,
oh, it's very true. And I say, yeah, like you said, new people, bring it on. Come forward. We will welcome you with arms wide open, and we just want to read the books and have a good time.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Boost your mental health more than anything in the past couple of years.
That's
I need
cool.
to hear more about that.
I've heard other people say that recently too, that it kind of helps them.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, you can kind of see, like, reading would help anyway, but finding, if that's your comfort zone, horror, being scared or experiencing that, then yeah, maybe it does help.
Well, and horror touches on topics that other genres just won't touch, that people can really relate with, even though you would think horror is, dramatic and dark and all this. A lot of it's really relatable, and it can really speak to people on something that they may be going through in real life or have experienced or something like it. So it's for a lot of authors, I would assume it's an outlet to release through your writing some tension, but for some readers too. And sometimes it's subconscious. Like, you guys may not even realize it's something you've put in a book that we've picked up and we've read has like really hit home. And maybe something we didn't even realize until we read that part, and it just kind of like dawns on you, and it hits hard, and it stays with you, but not in a bad way, in a good way. So,
well, sometimes in a bad way. I mean, there's
way.
some books out there that scar you.
That's
like
true.
I'm thinking of Girl Next Door. That book is one of the most harrowing books I've ever read. I'll never ever reread it.
So I need to read that one, because I'm going to admit there isn't one book yet that I have read that has scarred me that bad yet, and which makes me worry about myself, you guys.
Oh, maybe we've built it up so much that when you read it, you'll be like,
"What is this?"
I've often wondered that, because that one book does seem to be the sort of lightning rod that everybody says, yeah, that book kind of.
I've heard there's worse too. Like, I haven't read it, but Survivor by Gonzalez, I think his name is.
Oh, really?
J.F. Gonzalez.
Gonzalez?
I may be wrong about the name, but
Maybe.
Survivor is supposed to be like way worse. It's just nasty.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? If it's worse than Girl Next Door, it's all I need to know. I don't want to read it.
You're like, I'm out.
Yeah.
And it's weird, because I would say, I mean, I do have like things, I wouldn't say that are like triggers to me, but things that I am a little more sensitive about. Absolutely. But I can put the book down, and most of the time I can walk away and just kind of shake my head and be, I'm good. Right. And then I think, what's wrong with me? So,
well, I think when it comes to that book, to Jack Ketchum's The Girl Next Door, I think it's more the perspective of the main character is what is the reason why that works so well, because something horrible is happening. He's a kid, but there's an adult in the room who's saying it's okay. And while you're reading it, you you're screaming at this kid to do the right thing, but at the same time you understand why he doesn't. And I think the brilliance of that book is that the author puts you right there with that kid, and that I think that's what lingers.
Yeah.
This is a weird complicit feeling of like allowing this thing to happen. As well, the writing's great. Jack Ketchum is a brilliant writer, but I think it's something about the perspective that the author puts you in that makes people walk away going, that was almost too much.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's it creates, I think one thing that book does really well is it creates a battle within the reader.
Yes, for sure.
And it makes you feel dirty while you're reading it. And you don't know why you continue reading it, because I finished it, but it's a really good book at the same time as being something very disturbing, like one of the most disturbing books I've ever read. So
for sure, there was another book that I read that came close to it that wasn't even considered horror. Is We Need to Talk About Kevin by Lionel Shriver.
I've heard of that one.
It's a mother looking at her son. Not to spoil it, but her son has done some awful crime, so she's reviewing her past, and the whole thing of the theme of the book is that I took away was she's trying to decide, is it nature or nurture? Was this kid born messed up, or did I do something to mess this kid up? Mm-hmm. It's not as disturbing as The Girl Next Door, but it kept me thinking, and it is very disturbing. And it's also, as a parent, it's one of those things that really gets under your skin.
And especially in the current era
in
which
we
live,
don't
it's
really
very
want to
timely.
think about it, but very topical.
It's very true. I was going to say, I haven't read The Girl Next Door. It's on my list, and I've kind of tried, when I've seen people review it, I've tried to listen to like the first little bit, but like sneak away before anything might spoil it. And I was going to say, the one thing about The Girl Next Door is something that's very realistic, is it not? And then Dave put in this, that it is based on a real story. And I do think that if in horror, I do find that realistic, true story, even though it may be fiction, but based on a story or something that would be real life, a true crime is can be the most terrifying, because it's things that can really happen. There are people out there that truly do these things. Absolutely. I do want to jump back up to Andreas's comment here, saying horror often deals with traumatic stuff of mental health issues, sometimes because the writer lived through it and explores it in their fiction. Absolutely. True. It's almost like that outlet, that release off the shoulders. Absolutely. And sometimes not. Sometimes authors are so good that you read their work and it's almost like they are sharing with you, like they're using it as a way to tell their own truth. But it's not their truth.
It's totally made up. Yeah.
Right? I know with, I mentioned in my collab with Merce and Felix there, Kelly Sharon, she's a Canadian author out of BC. She wrote this book called Pretty Wicked. And then there's another book to it called Wicked Fallout. And it's about a young girl who has a detective as a father. And since she was like 8 or 9 years old, she's wanted to plan out the perfect murder where she would never get caught. And when she's 8 or 9 years old, or maybe she's in grade 8 or something, it starts off at the very beginning of the book. So I don't think this is much of a spoiler because it's right at the beginning. The opening scene is one of her friends gets injured. And instead of helping her friend, she finishes the friend off in like grade 8. I can't remember if she was 8 years old or if she was in grade 8. And then the story goes from there. And let me tell you, the thought about this young girl having this weird obsession with wanting to kill people and plan out the perfect murders, it did have me making sure nobody was in my closets, making sure my screens and my windows were shut when I went to bed, make sure my door is locked, because I may be a grown woman, I may be a mother, but the thought of having this young girl come into my house and off me like she was doing to all these other people was just horrifying. And I told Kelly that it was almost like she was admitting to her own doings from when she was young, because it was written so well. And she said, no, she says, I just got a thing about true crime. And it was so good, but it was so terrifying. So sometimes that is some of the most horrifying horror out there, even if it's fiction. It's just because this stuff can really happen. Sorry, I'm catching up here on the comments. I think I went, Mr. Morningstar, hello. Yes. We Need to Talk About Kevin is amazing. I had that one on my list. I think it's still on my list. So now you've intrigued me to try to bump that up on the list sooner as well.
It's a great read.
Juan, Blanked by Visions, thanks for coming.
Hey, Juan.
Favorite horror author? Well, now I need to really push that one up on the list too, because it's been there forever. You guys are killing me here.
It's that TBR again.
That TBR, that's it. It's gonna crush me. I'm gonna have to read my way out. Maybe I will make it. That will be it. I'll be gone. Okay, is that big enough for you guys to read, or do you want me to read
I
it?
can read it.
Okay.
I don't think I've heard of that, but that one sounds good.
No, I like that idea.
Mr. Morningstar, you're putting more on the list. That's it. I need to quit my job and just become a full-time reader. Who is going to support me so I can just be a full-time reader? Let's go. Let's do this. That sounds really good. Okay, well, on the list, that one goes as well. And you know what? It's weird how these incredibly disturbing reads can really pull us in, and we can't get enough of them, and it almost becomes like an obsession. And sometimes I have to like sit back and like really evaluate myself and what's going through my own head. And am I really truly that nice of a Canadian, or
well, that's what the girl next door does to you. It makes you evaluate yourself because of what happens in it, and yet you keep reading it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I need to get to that one too. Although a lot of these ones, if I'm not mistaken, are also on audiobook, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Probably. I'm sure Catcher
I think so, yeah.
Shriver book are both audiobooks. So
because I can get through those so much quicker because I can listen, like you said, to work, commute, even at work, cooking, cleaning. I can listen to audiobooks. Well, maybe, except for I've got like that huge 50 books that I want to read on audiobooks too. It's never ending. There's too many fantastic authors in the world. I just you're not sorry. Nobody's sorry to adding to people's TBRs. Come on, that's what we love to do. That's why we do what we do.
Well, I think that was definitely a sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I do. I go sorry, not sorry. Whoops.
it is a good problem to have.
It is.
Yeah. Hey, Nick. Hey, I was talking about you earlier, talking about splattering. That's funny. Well, we have hit the 1.5 hour mark, and I know that a couple of us were on a bit of a time crunch. So
yeah, that's right.
And I know some people just came in, so I'm sorry. We'll have to close it up. But that was like a fantastic discussion talking about the difference between traditional, indie, small press. I'm always happy to do more of these and touch on other topics or go even further into this one. But isn't it neat?
It was a lot of fun. 1.5 hours.
Yeah,
I want to thank you, Nichi, for having me on, because my publishing history is nowhere near Tim's, and
we got to talk about your book.
Tim's been doing this a lot more consistently and a lot more longer than I have. But I was glad to come on and at least share my own true horror story.
We got a chance to talk about your books. That's amazing,
And I'm going to definitely be reading more of Tim's work in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks. I feel so bad. Tim sent me a copy of this. I still haven't read it.
That's okay.
You guys are so relaxed and easygoing, because I haven't read Isolation yet either. And Jason was so kind. I was doing a Canadian author giveaway, which is where I ended up meeting Tim and not realizing that he was Canadian. And I felt awful.
That's right. You were such a Canadian about it. I apologize for not knowing I was a Canadian.
Yeah.
It's almost like a loop.
I know the sorry.
But you don't have to apologize. We're all in the same boat with our TBRs. Yeah. And books don't spoil, so it'll be there when you get to it.
Yeah, I wanted to read Tim's recent book, but I just didn't have any room because I'm reading a ton of books with my eyes, and I couldn't fit in an audiobook, but I did want to fit in something, so I went and I checked out what was on Audible, and they had a werewolf book there by him. So I'm like, yeah, werewolf book.
It's okay. It happens. There's so many great live shows that are happening. I think I watched I popped into 3 different live shows yesterday.
Did you?
There's so much going on. Yeah, absolutely. It's great. There's a smorgasbord group. But it's hard because you want to watch all of them and you're like, I just can't.
Yeah, that makes it tough. Yeah, I find myself bouncing between. They're all on at the same time. You're like, okay, do I stay at one or do I bounce around?
Okay, sometimes I have my phone going and my computer going at the same time, and I'm listening to both of them, and I'm commenting.
You know what? I've done that with my phone and my tablet. Yeah.
It's too much fun. I do have both of your guys'. So I've got these two smaller shelves that sit here right on top of my nightstand. And what I did to prioritize which books I want to read first is I put like my highest reads on my list up on the top shelf and then down, down, down. Or like if they came in first. So both of your guys, I went to go pull them. I'm like, oh, I got to pull their books off my shelves. And they're both on the top of my TBR ones. So I'm really excited about it to jump into these. There's just so much delicious goodness in here. But I will say, and I say this all the time, I love supporting all authors. But when they are Canadian, fellow Canadians, it's just like the cherry on the top, you know, because you don't see enough Canadian authors out there.
Right.
And especially not in the indie small press world. So we need more of them. Come out, Canadian authors, start releasing things, especially horror, dark fiction. But yeah, that's why I felt so bad, Tim, when I didn't know you were Canadian.
Yeah.
We had connected on Instagram, and then, I mean, we chatted a bit, but I don't think I put two and two together that you were Canadian until that giveaway. And you're like, if you ever do another one, I'll give you a copy of mine. And I'm like, I didn't know.
I will take you up on that next time, like maybe next spring when the Silver Shamrock book comes out. I'll get in touch. We can do something fun with that. I
can't wait. And I'm on their list, so I should receive a copy of it. If not, I'll give Ken Heck. I'll be like, listen, fellow Canadian, I need a copy of that book. We've got a couple things here quickly, and then I will let you guys go. Great discussion. Thank you. Yeah, I enjoy this. It's great coming on here and just having a live show and just getting to know the authors and their work, which I made sure to sneak a little bit of that in. But to have these discussions as well, because it's neat to see the difference, because I've had a little bit of experience for a couple of years of reviewing for traditionally published, and I've also reviewed for small press and for authors directly. You get to see the difference when you get to know, the process of things, or you get to talk to different authors. So it's really neat to see the difference, but there's pros and cons to both. Absolutely.
My answer would be, of course, you should read the series. No, but if you want, the first book is up for free. It's a novella, but you can try it out without any cost, and if you like it, continue with it. So
read all of it.
Just read it. Which isn't me being nice. That's a tried and true sales tactic. Put the first book up for free and lure them in like crack. So
and if it works,
first dose is free,
and it works. It actually does work.
It works for me. I'm telling you. That's why that list is, the way it is. That's why I'm going to be crushed. That's it. We've got to make this a series. That's it. Nikki crushed by her books. All right. I need some type of editor that can make this like legit, make it look like I'm really dead at the end of it. Okay. Well, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Tim, Jason, for coming on and having the nicest, easygoing Canadian chat around.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much for having me. And thank you, Jason, for being on with me. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Tim.
Absolutely.
And thanks everyone for showing up and talking with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you can see, we don't say A all the time, or a boot.
Right? A?
I don't think we said it once.
Yeah, unless we were making fun of it.
We're
Canadians going A, just making fun of it. Usually it's the Americans who do that. So.
Making fun of us. Yeah, exactly.
And they do it really poorly, so.
Yeah.
Oh, but it's so funny. Or people that ask me still if I live in an igloo because I live in Alberta, and I'm like, listen, I have internet. If I lived in an igloo, all of my books would be they would be water damaged. It would be hell.
They get moldy in the summer.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on, and thank you for everyone that came and hung out with us in the chat, discussed everything. And I will sneak off now and go put both Tim and Jason's information, all of their socials, in the description. So it's one click away. Go check them out. Go buy their books. Come back. Plan buddy reads for me for these two, please, because they're up on my list in a short time here. And maybe we can do buddy reads and gush all about them together, because I love that. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you, Nikki. Bye.